Ja, wunderschönen guten Morgen allerseits. Herzlich willkommen zur gemeinsamen UserCon der VMware Deutschland, Österreich und der Schweiz. Wir machen das jetzt zum zweiten Mal virtuell. Wir drücken aber alle die Daumen, dass wir uns nächstes Jahr irgendwo wieder vor Ort und persönlich treffen können. Ich glaube, das brauchen wir alle. Mal wieder richtige Menschen treffen, ohne Headset, ohne Kamera, mal wieder plaudern, scherzen, Erfahrungen austauschen oder einfach nur ein Bier trinken. Ich denke, das ist das, was die Community ausmacht, Netzwerke. Jetzt nicht im elektrischen Sinne, sondern im sozialen. Also wie gesagt, heute nochmal virtuell, aber trotzdem haben wir ein schönes Programm zusammengestellt, wie ich meine. Wir haben spannende Vorträge von VMware-Experten, von Sponsoren, von der VMware-Basis. Unsere Themenschwerpunkte sind heute natürlich vSphere, Tanzu, Kubernetes, nicht mehr wegzudenken, Cloud natürlich und auch Automation, Security, NSX und viele andere. Ich hoffe, da ist für alle etwas dabei. Und wenn mal zwei interessante Vorträge gleichzeitig laufen, dann macht nichts. Wir zeichnen alles auf. Lehnt euch zurück, guckt einen live an und guckt euch das Recording später irgendwann an. Bevor wir aber starten, möchte ich noch Danke sagen. Danke an alle VMware-Leader, die auch in schwierigen Zeiten die Community weitergetragen und am Leben erhalten haben. Danke an das UserCon Orga-Team. Thanks to the VMware HQ in the Netherlands, making this possible. And now we switch to English, and that's a good occasion to say welcome to our keynote speaker. On behalf of all VMware leaders, I'd like to say thank you that we have you here today live, VMware Vice President and CTO EMEA, Joe Bagley. Joe, thanks for joining. The stage is yours.
Michael, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you today. And I have been to pretty much every VMUG in my patch of Europe, Middle East and Africa. And unfortunately, I've not managed to make it to this one yet. And I'm doing it virtually, but I'm here anyway. So that's pretty cool. What I wanted to do today is share a whole bunch of cool stuff with you. So I'm going to jump straight into the presentation that we've got and talk you through some of the cool stuff that we've got. There's a couple of good demos as well. So let's get going. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Bagley. I've been at VMware now 10 years, and I represent the Office of the CTO in Europe, Middle East and Africa. And our mission at the Office of the CTO is to create disruptive technologies for VMware and enable this culture of perpetual innovation. And as I'm constantly reminded by Raghu, our CEO, we're also not to break anything. We're meant to make things better, not worse. And I hope you'll all appreciate that. The way that we do that in the Office of the CTO is around this goal of co-investing. We co-invest with our R&D business units internally. We co-invest with the VMware field, our partners, and also our customers. And that's the great thing about our VMware people, our VMware partners, is because they're in VMware, is our partners, it's our customers, it's everyone that we talk to at VMware. And it's the reason why I love VMware so much, because it's how I ground myself again. And normally I'd be looking forward to hanging out with you all day and having you all chat with me, but unfortunately we can't do that here today. We also, the way that we do this really is around today, hopefully sharing insights into our strategy and areas of technology exploration, with the hope that we can plant more seeds in your mind around co-investing, around co-innovating, around collaborating. Because the Office of the CTO is driven by this co-innovation model. We're working continually, both with the internal people you can see there, but also external, such as partners, customers, people like you, and working on all of the things we're doing around the world of innovation. And there's some things highlighted there down the bottom. You've got, machine learning and edge and service mesh, but I'm going to actually show you a few more of those later on and even have a demo of one of the things we're doing that's kind of cool in that area. But really what the goal is of the Office of the CTO, and any representative you meet of the Office of the CTO, such as a CTO ambassador or a VMware field principal, are seen to be a technology visionary, a trusted advisor, a co-innovation partner with you, and also focused on our VMware goals of a force for good. So let's talk a little bit more about what we're seeing, what I'm seeing as the CTO in my conversations with customers every day, and how we see the market transforming and changing at the moment. If we look out there, every enterprise is on a path to reinvent themselves as a digital business. Every CIO knows that their primary job is to deliver the digital services needed to achieve this strategy. And organizations have already been on the path, and they already were before the pandemic, to building more digital businesses. We saw those plans dramatically accelerate in the second half of 2020. and continue to building momentum through this year in 2021. COVID, however, created this new urgency for these goals. It accelerated the adoption of cloud, it's increased the pace of app modernization, it's putting pressure on the CIO, on IT, and on developers. And so now when I talk to your leaders in IT, I'm seeing that CIOs must be able to deliver modern apps at the speed the business demands, operate across any cloud with the flexibility to run apps in the data center, at the edge, or in any cloud, and drive rapid business transformation while delivering enterprise-level resiliency, security, and operations. If you look, we are seeing a 35% cloud spend predicted and already showing up this year in 2021. But more importantly, is the prioritization not around let's modernize our infrastructure, let's move to cloud, but the focus now is more and more switching to apps. It's around how do we prioritize app modernization. And I want to talk to you a little bit more later on about some of the drivers we see behind that and the principles we see around doing that. So the problem is, though, that actually switching to this digital business, moving fast, is very difficult for most organizations. It's not just hard to transform apps. Really, this enterprise transformation is moving much slower than people thought, because transforming monolithic apps to cloud native is challenging. Moving apps to the cloud is not an easy case of drag and drop, as people keep thinking, or as some marketing would have you believe. And these legacy monolithic apps of the past are not built to support the requirements of modern businesses. Another thing to note is around developer skills. There's a scarcity of developer skills and resources. When we go out and talk to customers, they all say, well, all these companies keep talking to us about what we do with our developers. We don't have developers, or if we do have developers, we have very few developers. We seem to think that there's companies full of hundreds of developers hanging around waiting for the next cool project to change their business. I work and I'm part of the board advisory team for a couple of companies, one of which is a recruitment company, believe it or not, that works in the IT space. And the CEO was telling me only last month that there is a shortage in their recruitment of Java and Python skills. They can't get enough Java developers. I never thought in 2021 I'd hear someone saying, I can't get enough Java developers, but really there is such a shortage as people invest in this. In addition to the developer skills problem, we have this entrenched legacy infrastructure of the enterprise that isn't equipped to support modern apps. And the world of cloud is complex and growing more complex as multi-cloud adoption becomes the norm. So these diverse app types, these diverse infrastructures, and multiple public cloud architectures means the job of managing, securing, and adapting to new technologies becomes more complex, less efficient, and more prone to attacks. So at VMware, our goal is to define change, to define flexibility, to define agility. You've heard us talk about software defined for many, many years. We want it to be defined that agility is a software update. It should be, you need to change your security posture out at the edge. It's a software update. Need a new application delivery controller to better integrate a new acquisition? It's a software update. Need new apps and services regardless of the ISV or provider? It's a software update. I think you get the idea. What we're trying to do is move everything to be moving at the speed of software. And our goal is for your limitation only to be the speed of software. As VMware customers, that gives you infinite possibilities, and VMware partners too, when it comes to building highly differentiated solutions. So let's see how this applies to each of our three primary constituents. As you'll see here, for IT ops, this can mean a globally consistent infrastructure footprint that provides consistent tooling, telemetry, and processes anywhere an application runs. This is what we've been building towards for many, many years at VMware. Everything behind the SDDC, VMware Cloud Foundation, everything we're doing in that space is all around making sure we have this globally consistent platform that makes it easy to operate anywhere on any cloud. For developers, they should be able to take advantage of this global footprint using the APIs, the tools and services that they already integrate with their preferred platforms, making it easy for them to do that. That's why we're working on building things like Kubernetes into our platform. Eventually, people won't talk about Kubernetes, by the way. Hopefully, it'll just be something that is about as exciting as talking about any other API. We also want to create this cloud agnostic marketplace. You've heard us talk in the launches earlier this year, sort of end of March, beginning of April, hopefully, around Cloud Universal and what we're doing in that space. And then for the lines of business, this always obviously translates to unparalleled agility. What we're looking at there is a faster time to market, greater security and privacy, all those wonderful things. But I want to sort of draw how that comes together in the VMware product offering, because I know it can be a bit confusing hearing about Cloud Foundation and Tanzu and what up until now, that strategy has been kind of separated. If the customer has a problem, has been to run cloud native apps, Tanzu's the answer, and use VMware Tanzu to build cloud native. But if you wanted to host enterprise native applications, VMware Cloud Foundation, right? You get enterprise scale security, etc. And this was the disparity in the market in our portfolio. You had Tanzu in one space, providing that ability and flexibility, but also the Cloud Foundation for that enterprise scale and security down the bottom. What we're doing at VMware is bringing this all together. We add that together until essentially you come to, the VMware Cloud. And this is why you'll hear us now at VMware talk more and more about the VMware Cloud. The VMware Cloud idea is that this is bold evolution for our cloud offering. We're expanding this definition, and it represents our multi-cloud infrastructure and our Tanzu platform coming together for a complete app and cloud solution. At the core is VMware Cloud Foundation. Everything we've sold, built with our customers, everything we've worked with you on, that Cloud Foundation is the most widely deployed cloud platform in the market. The leading infrastructure console globally, believe it or not, is vCenter. It's that control plane for the enterprise globally is vCenter. But now we can take that with consistent infrastructure across AWS, Azure, Google, and every major public cloud, with the ability to extend into native clouds for developers, security, networking, and management, and with access to every cloud native service from every cloud provider. It's the single platform for apps deployed for any cloud. And that's really it. If I sit back and think about what I've been doing at VMUGs, and I've been presenting at VMUGs for over 10 years now, and I did a retrospective for the UK VMUG because I'd done 10 of them in a row. And if I think back to sort of 10 years ago, I was talking to VMUG attendees around what they need to do next. And it was all around, you need to get into understanding what SDDC is. A couple of years later, it was okay, now the world is about automation. You need to understand how you're going to automate yourselves and drive down the world of automation. This is long before vRealize was a product, I suppose, not long after we'd acquired Dynamic Ops to start that process. And then we started talking about how you build the data center of the future, how you build the automated clouds of the future. Now, if anything, my message to you as VMUG members is that the future is going to be around apps. It's around how you help your businesses, your lines of businesses, develop and build applications that they can run anywhere, doing anything they want to. And it's that single platform for apps that we're building. You want to do something in PaaS? We've got that covered with Tanzu Application Server. You want to do something with infrastructure? Well, would you like to do it with VMs? Would you like to do it with containers? Which API would you like to use? Which management tools would you like to use? You want to manage them anywhere on any cloud? We've got the entire management platform for that. You want to deliver that anywhere to any device? We've got the platform for that too. The idea really is it's focused around the applications. And so we've built at the heart of what we're doing this optimal multi-cloud, multi-site solution that truly gives you that freedom to build for any cloud or site, but more importantly, gives you more secure and efficient operations. It's that consistent operations across clouds and sites, a consistent developer experience, multi-cloud security, and finally, the ability to future-proof technology investments. You could start an application in the cloud, and as business needs change, deploy it to the edge or to an enterprise data center. In other words, by going with what we're providing here as a platform, we're allowing our customers and our partners to bake in the ability to quickly pivot without breaking anything. And that's the point here. We're trying to make it that everything we've done with you so far, you're building on top of that, adding to that and getting flexibility and more importantly, openness and choice. And this brings me on to a term that, I'd like to start introducing a little bit more. And we talk about it internally at VMware, which is this IT sort of pragmatic DevOps, right? It's this developer self-service plus operator-defined governance and guardrails. So what if your IT development operations teams could access the Kubernetes API directly from their existing vSphere deployment to deliver Kubernetes clusters to the developer teams at rapid pace? And what if they could do this without worrying about the underlying vSphere infrastructure and it's, while enabling and ensuring enterprise governance, reliability, and security? This is pragmatic DevOps. There's no idealism here. There's no dictating of tools or processes from one group to another. Developers and ops teams can use their tools and APIs of choice while realizing better velocity, agility, and security as a result. It's all about choice. It's all about openness. It's not about delivering one solid, integrated, proprietary, opinionated stack. It's about allowing that choice. That's really what we're building here at VMware. So we're building towards this multi-cloud, multi-site future. So if we tie it all together, we're able to build solutions with you that can allow you to pivot at a moment's notice. And my favorite example of this actually is using Tanzu we were developing an application for a government this time, actually sort of March, April last year. And when we started to roll it out to be national scale for that government, with everyone in the country using it for pandemic reasons, we suddenly realized that the cloud provider we were on, which was one of the big 3 hyperscalers, didn't have enough resources in that country of the type we wanted to do that. So overnight, we moved the entire application from one hyperscaler to another because it was running on Tanzu. And they came in the morning, the customer was like, okay, we switched to running on this cloud now. They almost fell off their chairs. But it was possible because of the way that we were doing this, because we were providing coding to standard APIs and also providing this cloud independence that I'm talking about. And so because we're not a cloud provider, we're able to uniquely create opportunities for you and customers and partners like you to build best of breed solutions, taking the best of the public cloud, ISV ecosystem and open source to differentiate your offerings and build the leading application platforms. And so with that, I'd like to switch to the first demo I've got here, which is from Mandy. And Mandy's going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff we can do on our multi-cloud operations and developer velocity and the work that we've been doing. Mandy's a principal customer success architect, a member of the office of the CTO here. And so she's recorded a nice video for me here. And I'm going to just share that up with you now. And Mandy will take you through it. Just trying to get it to play, which is the next technical challenge for me. So give me a second.
Containers, especially when delivered with Kubernetes, are an explosive trend that is expected to grow by almost 50% per year, leading to more than 85% of global organizations running containerized applications in production by 2025. Meanwhile, big enterprises are working hard to embrace this evolution, often relying on you, our partners, to help.
Okay, that didn't work. Give me a second. For some reason, it's not shared, Mandy. Oh, there we go, because I've shared the wrong thing. That would be why.
Containers, especially when delivered with Kubernetes, are an explosive trend that is expected to grow by almost 50% per year, leading to more than 85% of global organizations running containerized applications in production by 2025. Meanwhile, big enterprises are working hard to embrace this evolution, often relying on you, our partners, to help them drive their growth as software companies. These enterprises have the majority of their workloads living in VMs. vSphere is still the biggest piece of that, growing at a very healthy rate of about 10% per year. That leaves our collective customers with a challenge: how to manage containers together with VMs. In many cases, your best bet is to meet these enterprise customers where they are and enable value-add solutions on top of their current management tools. I'm going to show you a demo where we've done just that. We've integrated one of our latest acquisitions, SaltStack, with Tanzu Mission Control within vRealize Automation CodeStream to enable you to build a CI/CD pipeline that developers can trigger to provision a Kubernetes cluster in a cloud-agnostic manner, register it with Tanzu Mission Control, and perform SecOps as part of intrinsic security before that workload is released to the developer. As you can see here, we're using a vRealize CodeStream pipeline that can be triggered based on any sort of event, via the webhooks to a code repository like Git, via API, or as part of the catalog in vRealize Automation Service Broker. For this pipeline, we're using an automation template that deploys a Kubernetes cluster managed by Tanzu Mission Control and 2 database VMs. We'll check the status of that deployment, and then we trigger compliance and vulnerability scanning in SaltStack SecOps. Finally, we automate the access rights to the workload and make the newly deployed Kubernetes cluster and database VMs available to the developer. You can see now that the pipeline has been triggered. And if we click into Tanzu Mission Control, you can see that the cluster has been created. Clicking into the details of our cluster, we can see that VCF management cluster and Kubernetes versions, along with other details and management actions for that cluster. Going over into vCenter, we can also see the details of the deployed Kubernetes cluster. Going back to CodeStream, we can see that the SecOps phase has now begun. In this case, we've added a manual approval step for compliance for demonstration purposes. This phase can be fully automated with SaltStack APIs in your customers' environments, but I'm going to show you via some manual steps. Going into SaltStack, we can see in the policy the minions for our deployment and dig into the compliance issues that were found. For the purposes of the demo, I'm going to manually click on the remediate all action. However, this process can be automated via API and incorporated into your pipelines or other automation and orchestration. Coming back to CodeStream, we can see that, that now we need to complete the approval for the compliance check. This is a manual step so that we can tell CodeStream to move on. This would normally not be there if you've automated the process. This allows the execution of the pipeline to complete, giving the developer access and adding the Kubernetes cluster as an endpoint in CodeStream. Now again, for demo, I'm going to show you the access token and the IP address that we chose to email to the developer. And finally, as you can see here, that Kubernetes cluster has been added as an endpoint within CodeStream, so the developer can now utilize that cluster in other pipelines to automate, say, the deployment of the application they're working on itself. I hope this demo has sparked your imagination about what sort of services you can build for your customer, whether that's with VMware tools like vRealize and Tanzu, or whether you're using other tools like Jenkins or Ansible, Puppet or Terraform.
Cool. So I did get the video to work there at the end. I'm sorry about. Hi there, I'm back. Sorry, I'm having Zoom issues this morning. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's the connection I'm on, but I've got the video to work in the end, so that's good. Right, so as you see, there's quite a bit in that demo. Our suite of products are all coming together to provide value for operations, developers, and the line of business. And for customers, what's important here, I suppose, is the modularity of our approach. You can use your tools of choice to build the right solution for your needs. Our focus is on creating differentiated ways in which you too can differentiate. And it's great to see how acquisitions like SaltStack get so rapidly integrated now into what we're doing and starting providing value fast. Looking ahead, I want to talk to you a little bit more about what we do in Octo and some of the cool teams that we have. And the first one I want to talk to you about some of the ongoing work in Office of the CTO is that last year we introduced this team called the Accelerated Co-Innovation Engineering, which is part of the Advanced Technology Group here in the Office of the CTO. And this team's really chartered with accelerating on roadmap feature development. So if you need a key feature in a product to sort of make it work and solve your solution, I suppose, is really this team, that's where this team can help. When the capabilities exist on roadmap, but are currently sort of 12+ months out, we actually have a team of engineers that as a customer, you can step in and build this, or as a partner, you can step in and build the solution in partnership with you and with our R&D business units. And this isn't some one-off services engagement. Instead, it's an accelerated development that's packaged as a service offering. And each project is sponsored by the appropriate R&D business unit with the goal of being supported in the product as quickly as possible. So one of the examples we did with this, we had a customer that required Puppet integration with VRA8. And the requirement was holding up them, I suppose, actually moving forward and actually, doing a deal with us, really, I suppose, best way to subscribe it. And so the ACE team came in with VMware's Cloud Management Business Unit, and the customer agreed to a statement of work, and they agreed to that in December. And by the middle of March, the feature was already incorporated into and supported in VRA 8.4. So, if you're out there, you're trying to build that amazing solution, that next big thing for the customer project that you're working on, or your own project as a customer yourselves, and you need that big thing, it may be worth stepping up and asking if the ACE team can step in, just to have an understanding of what we can do there. Another thing that we do in the Office of the CTO is XLabs. This is really where innovation happens. This is where we explore and deliver innovation through sort of cultivating these leading technologies. And anyone at VMware with a great idea can participate in the innovation process. And so this is where, if you're looking for some cool next thing for us to work on at VMware, or you've got a great idea, then work with one of our VMware colleagues that are all engaging with you at VMUGs and find a way for us to introduce that into XLabs. Some examples of some of the things we're doing in XLabs' current areas of investment of focus are around things like machine learning, edge, modern apps, security, and sustainable computing. We're looking at things in intrinsic security, and you've already seen a number of advancements in this space, such as SASE, carbon black workload, service-defined firewall, DevSecOps, Salt Stack, much more. If you're looking at machine learning, here we've recently open source project Fado, which will allow any Kubernetes pod to use any Bitfusion Kubernetes device plugin to remotely access a GPU on any vSphere 7 server over Ethernet, which is pretty cool. We're doing work with hardware accelerators that will give you more flexibility in terms of the number of hardware partners that we work with. And finally, we're going big with open source Fate project, that's F-A-T-E, which provides federated machine learning. And federated machine learning takes advantage of VMware's highly distributed global footprint. Under Edge, obviously federated ML is certainly an Edge use case. We're doing much more here too. We're doing more work to consolidate Edge infrastructure, ultimately getting to a point where a single appliance can run infrastructure and appliance application services. And then there's a whole bunch more besides we're doing in modern apps and in sustainable desktop, sustainable computing. And I want to do some of those talks about that probably at the next theme. I can talk to you a little bit more about what we're doing in sustainability and in ESG. But right now, I want to hand over to Luis Valero. So Luis Valerio Castillo has done a fantastic demo here of how one of the projects that's coming out of the Office of the CTO that we're working on to allow you to do integration with native public cloud services. And so for that, I'm going to share another video, which we will start playing now.
Customers using VNC on AWS with very large content libraries express concern over the cost of the library on vSAN storage. To save on cost, people in the community and partners like Tieto have shown how to store a content library in S3 and as a subscribed library, and manually maintaining the content and index. The solution solves the storage cost problem, but it is hard to manage and scale. If you have customers that would benefit from making the solution easy to manage, then take note. We are currently building a Flink that contains everything needed to provide and care for a library backed by S3. We are now looking at the AWS S3 UI. Take note there are no S3 buckets currently there. Going to the vSphere Content Library UI, we see that there is only one content library. The demo is going to be driven primarily through the command prompt, but in the future we plan on developing a UI. Now let's take a look at this make file. The file has a series of Kubernetes commands which are using YAML configuration files. The reason the solution is using Kubernetes operators to manage the services. Let's go ahead and start the deployment. Going back to the S3 UI, we see that a new S3 bucket has been created. If we go back to the vSphere Content Library UI, there is a new content library. If we dig into the details of the new library, we see that it is subscribed to the S3 bucket we created earlier. Looking back at the S3 UI and digging into the bucket details, we see that a new folder has been created automatically. The contents of the folder are a series of JSON files which allow vCenter to understand the contents of the bucket. Let's go ahead and create a new folder and call it Photon inside of this folder. And inside the folder, we'll upload a Photon OS ISO image. Our system takes care of maintaining the index of the bucket, which means any items that get added to the bucket will be available to be sent through the content library. Let's go back to the vSphere Content Library UI and delete our content library. Normally, this would have been a really bad demo, but since all the services are driven by Kubernetes, they benefit from the power of the reconciliation loop. What that means is if any of the services move away from the desired state set by the user, it will be automatically brought back to the desired state, much like we see now. Next, we'll create a virtual machine using the Photon OS ISO image we uploaded into the S3 bucket. We'll call this Photon VM. Now that it's been created, let's power it on. Finally, when we open the web console for the new VM, we see the Photon OS boot screen has come up. Looking into the future, this Flink functionality will likely move into vCenter, but there will be a new Flink containing lifecycle management of external services, whether a traditional cloud native or from every public service provider.
Cool. Thank you, Luis, and thanks for doing that demo and recording it up for us. As you can see there, I mean, really, we are working so hard now with on what we're doing in terms of supporting for developers. We're building similar functionality for additional AWS services such as RDS and plan to offer similar integrations with Azure VMware solutions. So this gives you more flexibility in building hybrid apps and support to your customers. And you can easily take the best of VMware, ISV and open source ecosystem and quickly pair that with the best of what a public cloud provider offers. Again, you can build best of breed offerings, leveraging the best of all worlds. So, you know, the Office of the CTO, I only had 30 minutes and it's a huge job that I do full time and there's an awful lot going on. I wanted to share with you very quickly a little bit about our strategy, a little bit about what's going on with a multi-cloud story. It's a couple of cool demos all in 30 minutes. It's quite a tight thing to do. But we want to keep innovating. We want to keep working. We want to keep working with you. As I said, VMware is the most exciting place for me because it's where I get to properly meet with some customers and properly start to have those chats around cool new things we can do next. Thinking about where we can expand and redefine emerging markets. If you've got cool ideas around edge, around machine learning, around modern applications, we will set the foundation, but it's you, our customers, and more importantly, our VMUG members that bring our technologies to life. And you make the magic happen. So let's co-innovate together, grow and succeed, and build some really amazing tech along the way. Reach out to your VMware colleagues that are part of the members of the VMUG. Reach out directly to me. I'm at Joe Bagley on Twitter. I'm jbagley@vmware.com if you want to reach out to me on email. Or say, find anyone else at VMware, they'll be able to find me. I'd love to hear from you about your cool ideas, about something we could do to co-innovate with you to make what we do at VMware better. And some of those conversations are already happening. So my last slide now, I'd like to give a plug to my good friend and kind of my right-hand man in the DACH region is Bjorn Brundert. And Bjorn is running a podcast, a German-speaking podcast called Der VMware Podcast. And he's had some fantastic people on here. So Dirk Hoendel, who leads our Chief Open Source Officer in German, talking about open source. We've got Christian Dickman, who's now a vSAN principal engineer globally. He went from an intern to doing that. Talk about Kubernetes with Michael Gash and others. Soon he's going to be doing things on Spring, disaster recovery, etc. And he's published that on all your favorite podcast platforms. And he's even put a nice QR code up there for you as well. So for more on the innovation that's going on at VMware, the cool things that are happening, jump on and listen to that podcast. But equally, thank you very much for listening to me this morning. I apologize if I've talked too fast at times. I generally do. And we've got an awful lot to cover in a very short time. I really hope you enjoyed the rest of the VMUG here. And I really, honestly, genuinely want to be there in person for the next big UserCon when we all come together. I would love to be there for you. So with that, thank you very much. Cheers. I think someone else is meant to take over at this point.
Thank you, Joe.
No worries.
Sorry, I was a bit late. Now we have a 5-minute break. Thank you for the very good keynote, very new points. And I think we will continue now with the next presentation. So you have to switch to the auditorium. Thanks for joining and thanks for being here live, and keep our fingers crossed to see you live in person next time.
I hope so too. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Cheers. Enjoy.
Thank you, Joe.